Not at all. This is, obviously a really huge step, I think, in our program, certainly under my time here as head coach. I'm excited to have this group playing in this tournament for a myriad of reasons. Started from March 24th, 2017, when, there's a lot of question about me being the head coach here to, having to recruit this group, not once, but twice, and not knowing really for a long time whether this was a realistic possibility. But we told the kids we'd fight for them, and we did that, and then they fought for us, and they put themselves in a position to be playing really good basketball this time of year, and I'm excited that we get to continue.
Terrific. We will go to questions. Your first one is from Jacob. Go ahead, Jacob.
Mike, when the seeding came out yesterday, there's a lot of national talk about you guys getting a 4 seed. What was your reaction to the 4 seed?
I was surprised a little bit, considering, not just the number, but the way we had played. I thought we got a little bit of I don't know. I'm not going to gripe, right? You got to beat good teams if you're going to play in this tournament. I thought we should have been a 3, but it is what it is. We'll get to play, right? If we're good enough, we'll beat some teams that are going to move on this event. And that's the only way to really, I guess, go out there and show that we deserved a little bit better, is to go out there and play really well and continue to move on.
Was that kind of your message to the players? Use it as fuel, maybe?
I'll be honest, I really haven't talked to them yet about it. We had a kind of a funky schedule. We almost weren't able to watch the show somehow. That was logistically going to be not really a lot of fun, but I wanted to make sure that our guys got a chance to enjoy that moment. And so we did that, but the trade-off was we would have to leave pretty quickly after that. And then we had some weather and plane issues. And so we wound up, so I haven't really talked to them much about it yet. And we probably won't meet till tomorrow because we're in kind of a quarantine situation here for a couple tests. And but when the time is right, they'll get the message.
What have you seen about Liberty? Obviously, they got a really good guard in Darius, and Coach McKay has done a really good job too. So, what have you seen from Liberty?
They got a really good team. They may be the best 13 seed in the event. They're really well coached. They have a disciplined style of basketball that they play. They have players who have not only played in this event, right, when we don't, but they have guys who've won in this event. And, that experience is certainly something to take into consideration as we prepare. They've also play really good competition in their non-conference, to get themselves in position in case they have some stumbles in league play. They beat South Carolina this year. They played TCU very closely. They played in this event a couple of years ago and beat Mississippi State. So I have the utmost respect for their program, and I know we're going to have to really focus on having a good game plan and preparing well to give ourselves a chance to move on.
I don't know if you were very familiar with Coach McKay before this, but can you kind of speak on what he's done there? He's been around the country as a head coach, and he's come in there and really kind of made Liberty a pretty special program.
Yeah. Coach McKay and I spent a little bit of time this summer just kind of communicating, but I've always had a lot of respect for the way he's run this program. He obviously, gets really good guys who buy in, who usually stick around for 4 years, and I'm sure he's having a great impact on their lives. I also know that he knows quite a bit about basketball. He's been around some other really good minds. Tony Bennett, was probably the first one that people will reference. He knows a little bit about players. Before Seth Curry showed up on Duke's campus, he played for Richie McKay at Liberty for a year first. And so, he recruits well, and he's going to have a team that we're going to have to, work really hard to beat.
And last one for me for now, you've talked before about the significance of Black coaches needing to be in the Final Four and things. You just coached against Shaka in the Big 12 championship game. Now you're against Coach McKay. How significant is this for you personally and for other coaches?
I'll be honest, I don't love it. There's a lot of coaches that we could have had to play in this deal. I don't know how many Black coaches, to be honest, are in the event. I would imagine it's not more than 10 or 11. we could have maybe found a way to not have us all playing against each other. And that only come to my mind because I think Dennis Gates, who's a good friend of mine, is in another situation like that. He's playing Houston, and so he's coaching against Kelvin. But, we don't get to decide those things. What we got to do is get our teams ready to play, and it'll be a cool moment to share with him on the court, kind of symbolic, but it's about putting your team in position to go play well.
Thanks, Mike.
Our next question is from Frank Bonner. Go ahead, Frank.
Mike, coming off the conference tournament, how do you gauge practice in terms of, how hard do you go in preparation for this?
We'll do what we do, Frank. We've gotten this far, having a kind of a system in place. We watch a lot of film. We haven't had super taxing practices for probably 3 or 4 weeks, to be honest. We saw what we had in front of us from a scheduling standpoint. And we started making a decision about midway through February that we need to kind of pull back from a physically demanding type of practice to a more mentally challenging one. But at the same time, keeping guys sharp in their reps and their rhythm. And so it'll be very similar. This tournament gives us a little bit more of a breathing room in terms of days in between games, but it's also one and done. You can't be looking ahead, right? You got to try to do everything you can to prepare for the game in front of you, because if you don't win that one, you don't get another chance to go practice. So let's put everything we can into trying to get ready for Liberty, and whatever that takes for practice, we'll make sure we get it done.
And then so I'm assuming today you said you guys won't, see each other because of quarantine. So it's today just kind of like a rest day for you guys outside.
It is, and we need it. Our guys do need some time away, physically and mentally. It's been a hell of a grind. We played 7 games in 14 days to end the season, and all 7 were against teams in the top 20, and only one of those games was at home. Our guys acquitted themselves pretty good, but I needed a break yesterday, and I got up at 5:30 because my body's just conditioned that way, and I tried to exhaust myself on a freaking stationary bike so I can go back to sleep. And then I did something I've never done before. I took an Advil PM at 9 a.m. to try to make myself go back to sleep. And it didn't work. So I'm going to throw the Advil PMs out, and I'm going to discredit any type of labeling they put on their products. But maybe it's because you're not supposed to take them at 9 a.m., right? And so the rest is good. And then we look forward to tomorrow getting ourselves starting to prepare for Liberty.
But I'm assuming if you had to choose, you choose this grind every time.
Every single time. No question about it. I don't know anything else, Frank. I told my wife, we were talking about maybe last summer, as we're going through quarantine, a lot of strange conversations came up during quarantine. And she asked me about retirement and where we would live and what we would do. And I said, I don't know. I'm not going to be a good person to be retired with, because I can't just sit home and not do anything. I need to find something to constantly motivate me. I read a few books, but I would take this grind every single day.
My last question is, are you still paying close attention to, how Ice's hand is doing and everything? How's that going for him now that, the tournament's over? Yeah, we're always mindful of the physical well-being of our guys and the mental well-being of our guys. He seemed fine. He was in great spirits yesterday. He was in great spirits in the locker room after the game, and I need that from him. Although he also hasn't been through this, he knows me better than anybody in our locker room, and he knows what I'm going to try to do to turn the page and get our guys prepared for this moment. And I need him in the locker room reinforcing that message, and he's already started off doing that. Thank you, Mike.
Our next question is from Gary. Go ahead, Gary.
Mike, give me a 12 over a 5 before I ask the question. Who's your 12 over 5 this year?
I'm gonna be honest. I haven't seen the
Don't
bracket.
say you haven't seen the bracket.
I swear I haven't looked at the entire bracket, but I will right now for you, because it's pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
But I don't know the let's see, we got is that
Cal Santa Barbara over Creighton?
Creighton? No, I wouldn't do that. I don't
Georgia-
know enough about them.
Winthrop over Villanova?
That I see again. So that's one I've heard just because that's the one people have talked about the most. I'll go Georgetown if I had to pick one.
Georgetown's a 12?
Think so.
They are, yeah, over Colorado. They may be favored to beat Colorado after their run in the tournament. All right. I appreciate it. That's not what is that it, Stephen? Do I got to go on now?
No, go ahead. You get a question. Go ahead.
Is the and not to belabor the 3 versus 4, but is being on the 4 line as opposed to the 3, what makes this a tougher run now? Seeing a 1 seed around earlier or seeing Liberty right out of the gate? A tougher 13 versus a 14, for instance. Or is that equally challenging?
I mean, they're all hard. These teams are all good. I mean, everybody that's in this tournament had to do some really good things during the season at some point, right, to get here. The 3 looks better next to your name, and maybe as a 3, you get a team that has a smaller chance to beat you. But and obviously we got a lot of respect for Liberty, but I don't know. I mean, there's so many things that can happen. So all I'll do, Garen, is focus on how do I get our guys ready to prepare for a team who has experience in this event. Like, that's a big deal to me to let them understand, they're used to playing against high-level competition. Like, we're not going to just show up and this is the first time they've seen long athletic guys. And they've won in this deal before. And so I'm more focused on that than, do I wish we were a 3? Yes. Do I think we deserved to be on the 3 line? Absolutely. But I'm not going to change it in the next 4 days. So I'm not going to let my guys focus on that. Let's just go win and let the play speak for itself.
Billis kept comparing Liberty to Virginia last night in terms of style of play. Is that apt from what?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, Richie worked with Coach Bennett for quite some time, actually on 2 different occasions. I think he left Virginia to go to Liberty and went back and then left again to go back. And so it's a unique deal. They play very similar. Now, they don't have the depth of size that Virginia usually has to compete in the ACC, but, they've dominated the leagues that they've been in playing that way for quite some time, both in their time in the Big South and now in their time in the ASUN. They've run through that league. I mean, last year, I think they won like their first 20 games or something like that. And so they're used to winning. They have a coach that's used to winning. And our guys need to understand how seriously our preparation needs to be for trying to give ourselves a chance to win.
Our next question from Barry Trammell. Go ahead, Barry.
There we go. By the way, for everybody, take all the 12s this week, all the 12s in the upsets. Hey, Mike, sort of off the track of this tournament, why do you think, and you mentioned the date you were hired, why do you think you've been able to become so immersed in the campus at OSU? You're like one of the most popular people on campus, and not to offend you, but it's not like you've won big. I mean, this is the first year that, the team has exploded and everybody's fired up. Was that something that happened before you became the head coach, after your head coach? How did that occur, and why did that occur?
I don't know. I do think I'm well liked around. And I think maybe it's part of what you said. Like, I don't take offense to that, Barry. I know I'm very aware, like, we haven't won. We haven't played in this event. Now, we've only had 1 poor season out of 4. Right? I think sometimes it's almost like it gets talked about like we've been terrible. We haven't been terrible either. We should have been in the tournament my first year, right? We had a bad year, and then last year we, for whatever reason, but we didn't have a poor year. We started off conference play bad, but we also finished the season pretty strong, and now here we are. So we've done okay. Now, I don't know if it's anything to throw a parade about, but I've also not, from day one, taken offense to anything. When people didn't accept me as the head coach at OSU on March 24th, I wasn't mad at anybody. there were people who deserved to be frustrated and disturbed and confused and like, the hell is going on? The only thing that bothered me is that some of the notion was like we hired a chair. It was like we could have hired that chair in his office and been just as good, well off. No, that's not true. I was going to work really hard. I was going to treat people the right way. And, I told Coach Holder this, a while back. Listen, I'm going to give you everything I have, right? And I understand this business. Over time, if we don't win, I won't be able to have this job. I get that. But I doubt it because I believe work wins. And over time, we've just continued to work at this thing. And we've met every circumstance, whether self-inflicted or not. And there were obviously some recruiting mistakes we made along the way, but there were several things that happened that were well out of our control. We haven't let it deter us from just showing up and doing our jobs to the best of our ability. And for these kids this year, particularly, to have stuck with the plan and be committed to the mission back in June, I think shows that we at least treat people right. They believe in us. And I think that kind of permeates itself through everything we do. I show up on campus. I go speak to clubs. I don't mind picking up trash in GIA. I don't mind, just trying to be a regular, decent human being. And I think there's still some honor in that.
We got the news, let's see, 2 weeks ago, I guess, 10 days ago, about Holder's retirement. Did you know that was coming? What's your relationship with Chad? Is this part of a plan you knew all about?
Well, I think everybody kind of understood Chad's presence here was ultimately leading to this transition. I didn't know about the timing of it, as I don't think anybody did, but here we are, right? And, I think it's going to be fine. Chad's a tremendous person, first and foremost. He loves this university. He's got great experience, both internally in terms of how this campus operates and its athletic department, but he's also got some perspective, having been other places. So he's going to be able to bring some fresh ideas, some new things, and maybe his leadership style will be a little bit different, but I think it'll be very effective. And I know Coach Holder is in very strong support of it.
Last question. Have you looked back over these 3 years and have you ever asked yourself the same thing we asked 3 years ago? Do you know why Mike Holder hired you?
I don't know. I really don't. He's really the only one who can answer that. What I'll tell you what he told me was, and this is, you got to know Coach Holder to understand this, because he didn't mean any offense by it, but someone with probably thinner skin could have took offense to it. But about 3 weeks after, and we met probably every day for about the first month I was on the job, just about different things. And one day we got to talking about how did I become like the guy? And, he said I'd interviewed for a year. He said, but the thing that he worried about is because I interviewed poorly. He said I did really bad in my interview. And I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, what did I do wrong? And I appreciate you having some courage to even after that, with all this, he had 1,000 reasons to not hire me, and then I gave him one more. So I don't know.
That strikes us. That strikes everybody as implausible. The idea that you didn't interview well. Am I right, guys?
Now, there were a lot of people in the room, right? So maybe that's one man's opinion, but a pretty important opinion in that room. So, but I don't know. I think here's what I'll say. Coach Holder has a track record of this stuff. It's just not as high profile as usually your head football, head men's basketball coach, right? I don't know if John Smith was a head coach prior. I think the only coach on our head coaching roster that had been a head coach prior to being a head coach at Oklahoma State was Chris Young, who's our women's tennis coach. I think I have to go back. I don't think Kenny Gajewski, our softball coach, was a head coach. I don't think Josh Holliday was a head coach. And part of it is Mike Holder's personal experience doing this deal. He went from player to coach without coaching and then literally had no experience as an administrator. And
Coach, you there? Did we lose you?
Yeah, he froze up. He'll be back.
Yeah. We'll be back.
But I'm good. I'm good. I appreciate it, Stephen.
Okay.
Somebody
you
else
bet.
can take over.
You bet. Coach, Coach, you there? Oh, the screen went dark, didn't it? See if we can get Coach to. No problem. Let me move on. Our next question is from Grant Ramirez. Go ahead, Grant.
Hey, Mike. I know you said, one of your goals here is to make the program nationally relevant, and that kind of, puts a bigger spotlight on you too. Now since you guys have made this run, there's a lot of people nationally that are speaking, highly of you and the job you've done. Is that something you take time to think about or reflect on at all, or is it too early for that?
I don't know if there's ever a time for it, to be honest. This is about these kids. I'm really so thankful that I get to do what I do for a living because I love it. And part of the way I try to approach this is a long time ago, a guy named Kenny Pretlow saw me in the gym. I was about 7 years old and asked me if I wanted to play basketball. And that relationship started me on this journey, basically. The game of basketball has done so much for me already that now I feel like I'm being given an opportunity to pay it back and give back to other kids that same opportunity that Kenny Pretlow did for me, I guess back in like 1989 or 90, whatever hell date it was. But I'm so thankful and appreciative of what I can do now for other people. And that's really what my focus is how do I help these kids see a better future? Maybe, the Boons come to mind immediately. I saw those kids when they were 14 years old, and they were terrible at basketball. Like both of them were bad basketball players. But I thought that they were tall, and if they wanted to be coached and listen, that they could develop, in worst case, be guys in the state who would represent our program well and would take pride in wearing our uniform. And then I got to know them personally and their story and what they come from. And that's what this is about for me. It's helping guys like that ultimately get from where they are to where they potentially could never see themselves being. That's what it's all about for me.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Our next question is from John, the Basketball Times. Go ahead, John.
hoopshd.com, but yes. Good morning, Coach. Just want to ask about your playing experience in the tourney. I joined a few minutes late, so I hope somebody else didn't ask it. But if I can take you back to March 04, what are your memories, hopefully favorite memories of playing Memphis? And had I told you 17 years later that you'd be in this tournament and Coach Calipari of Memphis would not, would you have believed me?
No, because I didn't think I would ever be in the tournament again. That was my senior year in college. Like, I didn't think I was on track to become a coach. So that was it. I'll tell you what I did. That I want my players to not do is I looked ahead. And ironically, I was looking ahead to playing against Oklahoma State as a player that year. And it was probably, I enjoyed the experience. I don't think I relished enough in it. I don't think I was in the moment enough. And I probably played the worst game of my season that year in that game, partly because of that. I remember that vividly, feeling so disappointed that I was the clear leader of our team and I wasn't quite as engaged as I needed to be to help us win the first game. And that's how I left. But I also left feeling like I was a part of the best experience that a college athlete can be a part of. There's nothing like this tournament. I mean, as far as Cal, I don't really have a comment about that part.
John, did you have any follow-up on that? Okay, we'll move on to our next question from Marshall Scott. Go ahead, Marshall.
Yeah, Mike, kind of building off of that, looking ahead mindset. Obviously, Illinois is you guys 1 seed. Brad Illinois is a coach. That's a matchup the fans would be salivating over. How do you personally not try and look ahead towards that, and how do you get the players to maybe not look at that?
You know what? I'll be honest. Like, so Garen asked a question about the 512s, and I haven't studied the bracket enough, so I don't know. But I saw that. Like that, I'm not like, come on, you kidding me? I don't think our players have any idea about that whole deal. None of them were here. It's kind of what we talked about with the whole NCAA. Like those guys have no idea. They don't know. And I don't talk about it. There's no need to. So we move on. And what I want to do now is make sure, first and foremost, that we're as prepared as we can. Liberty can beat us. They're good enough to beat us. And so we got to prepare really well against a team that's going to be incredibly disciplined. K-State is a team that comes to mind, style of play wise, on the offensive end, really possession control. We think K-State plays slow. I think Liberty's like 15 spots behind them in tempo. And so, it's going to be a kind of a contrast of styles who can impose their will on the other. And so I want to make sure I focus on that. I'll have staff guys that collect data and get us prepared for whoever's next. But my job is to make sure we're as prepared. If we get a chance to play Illinois, then I'm sure we'll have several opportunities to talk about it. And I won't back down from any conversation, and we'll do what we can to get ready for that one when the time comes. But right now we're really focused on Liberty because they're really good. I don't want our guys even thinking, but again, to our guys, I don't think they have any idea about any of those backstories. So good luck asking them questions when the time comes. I'm not sure many of them know he was the coach here.
Gotcha. You mentioned those guys. This is the first year that I believe everybody on the roster, you recruited everybody on the roster. How significant is that in the success that you guys have had?
I can't tell you how much it is. And it's not really Thomas DeZagua, Lindy Waters, Cam McGriff, Trey Reeves, right? Those guys were with me for 3 years. They were my guys. I just didn't sign them here. Mitchell Solomon may get the most credit in my career of a guy who helped me start this path I'm on. He gave me the opportunity. He empowered me as a coach in year one before I'd ever coached a game and helped lead that team to success that many didn't think we could have under my leadership. And so him, Jeff Carroll, Tavares Shine, Kendall Smith, I did recruit Kendall, are guys that I'm forever indebted to. It is a little different, though, when you've sat in a kid's living room and you've told his family, you're going to do this for them. And so there was a time I remember in that huddle against Baylor the other day that I told every single one of those kids, we recruited you here for this moment. And it's real. I'm not selling them anything. They feel that and they understand that I believe that they can get the job done. And so I do think that it helps when we're in those tough situations that they know that they were brought here. That's a bad word, that they were recruited here and they came here to do this together under the leadership of the staff.
And then last thing for me, I was kind of looking through your coaching history. I believe this is the highest seed you've ever gotten in the tournament as an assistant or anything. Is there a difference in coaching as a higher seed? Like, kind of what does that mindset look like?
I don't know. I think the benefit I have on this side is I think we were a 12 twice and a 14 at Stephen F. And we won 2 of those times. And we almost won a second time as a 14, like had the game won. The guy who didn't make a basket in like 2 months tipped in a shot to beat us against Notre Dame. So I know what it's like for those teams preparing for a higher seed. And those are the things that I'll reference to our guys. They don't really have anything to lose, right? And so we have to make sure, A, they're really good, and B, they're kind of, and I do understand, and it'll be a little bit different how this thing works. By about the 6-minute mark, of the second half in our game, Stephen F. Austin versus West Virginia, everybody in the building was pulling for us to win. And West Virginia, I think, felt that. It was like playing a road game in Brooklyn, New York against a damn team from East Texas somehow with a kid with a lumberjack beard. Like, it just didn't make any sense that it was all going against them at the moment. So that's really what our focus on, is getting our guys to understand how this thing can turn quickly from you being a higher seed to also feeling in the game. If you're not playing well, like, there's real pressure on you to not have, one of those upsets happen to you.
Appreciate it.
Our next question is from Frank Bonner. Go ahead.
Hey, Mike, this question isn't just about necessarily you guys as a 4 seed, but over the years, as you look at how teams are evaluated at this point in time, do you think we've gotten a little too far from the eye test or the barbershop talk, so to speak, and rely too much on the metrics and formulas of how we look at teams and how they're valued?
Hey, I don't know. I mean, I think that assumes that everybody looks at it the same. I mean, there's a lot of people in the room, right, making this decision. The only thing I would say is I wish we'd value winning more. And I say that obviously with a slant to our team, because to have the second most quad one wins, we just introduced this as a major factor. And, we have the second most quad one wins. We played in the best league in the country. 5 of our 7 losses are to teams in the tournament. We have 13 wins versus teams in the tournament. We won 12 games in that hardest league in the country. And the gauntlet that we went through, and again, wasn't anybody's fault, but we had the most challenging draw to finish the season that anybody could have. And we acquitted ourselves well. So I don't know how you look at that. And that's why I think we should at least been a 3. I think we were closer to a 2 than a 4, but from the seeding list, we were closer to a 5 than a 3. So I think we should value winning more, but that's again, it's just another one man's opinion. And what we got a chance to do is go out there and prove our worth.
Thank you.
And looks like our last question is from Robert Allen. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, Mike, I asked you this in Kansas City a different way, and it didn't compute really well. But now you're in Indianapolis. You've been through Kansas City in the bubble with the Big 12. You've experienced the tournament as an assistant coach and as a player. How different is it coaching in a bubble than it is when you're just and I know these kids don't have complete freedom. That's kind of what you said in Kansas City. We treat this as a business trip, which it is, but the bubble is different. And how is it different as a coach and a player? Is it maybe even better?
It probably depends on your team, Robert. Our team is, I think, kind of unique in this regard. We got a team full of guys who don't really socialize that much. Now, I don't know if they've just been conditioned that way for a year and they don't kind of care anymore, which I think maybe on another side might be sad coming out of this thing, because we will eventually. But they like staying in their rooms. I mean, even when we're back on campus, we offer these guys to, like, hey, why don't a couple of you come by the house and just get away? And they're like, no, we're good. We'll just sit home and play PS4 and watch Netflix. And that's one of the flip sides of, these shutdowns or whatever you want to call them, is you kind of condition these kids in many ways to be pretty antisocial as human beings, which I hope once we come out of this thing, we're better off. As far as the basketball is concerned, it may be a benefit to us that our guys won't be distracted or feel like they're being forced to do this because they kind of enjoy the individual opportunities to do kind of their thing on their own. They got their own rooms. They have food brought to them. They literally don't have to do anything until they got to get dressed and brush their teeth and go to practice and then play a game. So I think maybe another team might have a different experience, but I think for us, I think our guys have enjoyed it to the degree that you can enjoy being isolated, but they also know that the opportunity to play on the biggest stage is something that they've all looked forward to.